Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzor-Mosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello there. Welcome back to Lost Signals Reviews, Film and Television. I am your former Oscar student turned meth dealer bitch, and as the first and hopefully only last time I'll say that word for this review, Scott Thurlow, and I'm here with my meth-making mentor, Chris Morgan.
Hello.
And we're going to be doing El Camino, a Breaking Bad story, which is the new sort of continuation movie that just dropped on Netflix, to continue on the story, as I alluded to, of Breaking Bad, the series. Now a couple years removed from when it ended. And we're doing a two-man show pretty much. Like I said, I'll be Jesse, you'll be Walt.
Sounds good.
We'll just review it. So, Chris, you got a log line for us on this one?
Yes. Pinkman's post-meth party.
Indeed. So with that, why don't you tell us about the plot?
Okay, literally the movie picks up right at the end of Breaking Bad when Jesse bursts through the gate in his El Camino, I guess, or not his El Camino, but
an El Camino.
And it shows him like going right to his buddy's house. Was it
Skinny Pete and Badger, I believe, are his two crony friends.
Yeah, Skinny Pete and Badger. And he goes there and he's got like immediate PTS. And they hide the El Camino and he stays over there. And they're actually turn out to be some really good friends because
yeah, man, they jumped in. They're like, yo, man, what do you need? We'll help you out, blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, they gave him their money. They hid the El Camino, which was really cool. Skinny Pete had Badger take his car to the Mexican border to throw everybody off.
Yes.
And Jesse took Badger's Fiero, and Skinny Pete stayed behind with the El Camino because there was a low jack on it. And basically, through flashbacks, we see Jesse trying to, basically the next 36 hours trying to get the hell out of Dodge. And it's not revealed that he's immediately going to go to Robert Forster's character.
Well, it's sort of set up. So, like, I mean, the thing is, they ask him, like, you got a plan, Jesse? When he like sort of crawls back to their place, and he rips a page out of the book, the yellow pages, and then it's sort of like, if you remember, like, again, this has been years removed, so even those of us who are like fairly big fans, like, might not remember every single detail, but the vacuum cleaner service was like the front for Robert Forster's character. So it's sort of set up there, is all I'm saying. Like, yeah,
and he through his, it's kind of like a progress, like through flashbacks. What's Jesse Pink? The psychopath. God, now I can't remember. Jesse. I
don't know what you're talking about.
Oh hell, the guy with the blonde hair.
Todd,
that's it. He has flashbacks to Todd when he was being held by Todd's uncle.
Right.
And he helped Todd dispose of a body, which was his cleaning lady, because his cleaning lady found some money that he had hidden in some encyclopedias. So Jesse kind of goes back there and basically tears the apartment apart, looking for the money, finds the money when the police show up. Turns out they're not police. Turns out they're two people from the welding company that
front that work with them. That Uncle Jack, I believe, got them to chain Jesse up with.
Yeah. So basically, it's great because they show the flashbacks and then they go to the present day, where Jesse takes a third of the money and then goes to the vacuum cleaner place, and Robert Forster's like, you're $1,800 short. And he's like, really? And he goes, yeah, this isn't a charity. So he goes back and robs the welding guys and does kind of a shootout. Well, first he goes to his parents' house, actually gets his parents and all the cops watching the house to go off.
He does some Walt-like maneuvers, he's thinking ahead, like, to throw everybody off the trail and like to get the money where he knows, or at least has been told or remembers where it was. And then, gets accosted by the two guys who are trying to also, like, get the hidden money. Gets his parents to go away, so the cops, like, think a stakeout, they're watching his parents' house, throws them off, blah, blah. He does, like, again, little moves like that were solid.
But and I like the way they never show their hand.
Sure.
They give you enough clues, and then it's kind of like, as Scott said, those of us who watch Breaking Bad, it's kind of like you're on recall. And even then, it doesn't quite hit you until it's there. So yeah, basically he takes down these two guys in a Wild West shooting.
I didn't quite like that, so I'll speak about that in a sec. But
I like how he took all the IDs and he's kind of like, he does a Goodfellas. He's like, I know where you live.
It's a fucking Fight Club thing too, but yeah.
Yeah, so he blows up the welding place, and then Robert Forster's character takes him up north and gets him to Alaska, and Jesse goes off. There's a couple flashbacks because we want to throw in Walter White, and we want to throw in his girlfriend who died. Oh, Christ.
You asking me a question?
Jessica Jones.
Kristen Ritter.
Kristen Ritter, yeah. I'm blocking everybody's names because it's so funny because Jesse, and then, it's kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, not important. So Jesse goes off to the north to have a fresh start that was set up at the beginning when he was talking.
A flashback in a conversation with
Mike
Ehrmantraut. Yes.
So, so that's basically it. As Scott said, there's probably one or two little things that we're gonna kind of stretched, even like the suspension of disbelief. But overall, I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really well constructed film, and I'm looking at a 3, probably a softer 3, but I am looking at 3 unless you can kind of convince me about a 2.
All right, I mean, I'm looking at a 2, so I'll try. I'm not like dead set on it, but. Here's the thing, and since it's only a 2-man show, I will channel Stephen Amosi and say one of the opinions that he said to me upon watching it, where like it felt basically like 2 episodes of Breaking Bad. Like, and yeah, that's fine, but I don't know if it's strong enough for a 3. Like, it was a good enough like cap off, like it's not its sequel, like epilogue essentially, right, to the main events of the actual show, and like that's okay. I had no huge issue with it, but I didn't think it was like fucking amazing either. And a couple things, the one thing you mentioned, I did not like the fucking Wild West standoff thing at all. Like, to me, like, this makes no sense. Like, it makes less sense, like, in context to me. I'm like, it felt like a lazy writing. Like, why would any character within this world do that? Like, it just didn't sit right with me. And maybe it's a nitpick, but I didn't like that moment. I didn't like that scene, that setup. And that's probably the most egregious example, but there are a couple other like small nitpicky things throughout. So that's why I'm docking it a point. Otherwise, it was fine. Yeah, it was okay. It was a nice to have a cap off, nice to have like the last Breaking Bad story.
An
that
epilogue
we'll see.
To Jesse's story.
Yeah, and like that's all fine. It's just that a couple moments here and there, specifically that one, or at least that one to the biggest degree, I was like, I expect kind of a little bit more out of like the producers and the writers of Breaking Bad stuff, but overall it was perfectly solid for what it is. So that's why I'm looking at it too.
Yeah, I'm probably going to come down on it too as well. You kind of convinced me because it's
like if it was fucking amazing, if it was like the entire series of Breaking Bad somehow into one movie, then maybe. But it just felt really, like a nice like double feature episode, and like that was. Kind of
it does seem like the epilogue, which would be the last 2 episodes of season 6.
Yeah.
I mean, my expectations were, to be honest with you, I went into this movie not expecting anything.
I was like neutral, cautiously like not optimistic at best, I guess I'll say.
I figured I didn't know what we were getting into, and I'm so glad we didn't have like some kind of retcon, like, here's 2 days in Jesse's life you didn't see.
Sure.
I mean, God.
Like, the flashbacks made sense. It did round out, like, what he was going through, like, when he was in captivity and being forced to work for for Uncle Jack and Todd and, like, that crew or whatever. Like, that was all fine, and, like, it made sense to his character. There was nice parallels between the flashbacks and the present after he escapes and his attempts to, collect the money and get the hell out of town. But, like, other than that, it was, fine. Like,
I agree with you. I mean, I had no expectations first. And to be honest with you, I was expecting them to drop a lot more.
Sure.
Hey, here's a flashback. Hey, here's Walter White. Or hey, they did have Walter, but it was
a nice small scene, and I actually enjoyed that scene.
Walter and Kristen Ritter I thought were appropriate, and I thought Mike was appropriate.
Yeah.
And, so I don't have any complaints. I really wasn't like hey, let's flashback. It wasn't any kind of retcon, which, as much as I love Battlestar Galactica, their little movies, like stuff you didn't see really kind of fucked everything up.
Okay.
So I'm really glad they didn't do that.
Fair enough.
And to be honest with you, that's why I brought it up, because that's kind of what I was expecting.
All right. So give him credit on that. But yeah, it was a perfectly fine like story within the Breaking Bad world and characters, just not like amazing to me. But I think it served its purpose well enough for what they set out to do. And again, if you're a big fan, or at least someone who's caught all the rest of the series, then it was a nice, again, little like dessert, we'll say, like to cap it all off. So I think we're going to go with 2s on that. Yes. And I will go to themes. So again, I don't want to say iffy, but like, it's like the same themes kind of as Breaking Bad, the series as a whole, just like condensed to a smaller story, like a smaller time scale, I guess, right? Like dealing with the repercussions of getting into this business of being a drug dealer and then getting involved with all this shadiness and trying to like escape, trying to like restart your life after having gone through pretty much hell. So like, it's there, it's fine. Like, I don't know if they delve too deeply into it. I don't know if like the time allotment, I believe it's like 2 hours, almost exactly the running time of this. So like, it's again, good enough for what is contained therein. I'll probably give it like an okay, soft 1. That's like the biggest theme I could think of. Again, like, there's even a line where in the flashback, I think it's the first opening scene, flashback to Jesse talking to Mike, and he's like, I'm trying to make things right. And Mike goes, sorry, kid, it's the one thing you can't do. Right. And that sort of sets up like, he's not trying to make anything right, or like, he's doing the best he can, I believe, after he escapes, after Robert Forster gets him up to Alaska, and he's got the money paid for it, and he gives him a bunch of letters for the people he wants to say goodbye to. I believe they focused on Brock, which is the little kid.
Yeah.
Right. So like, he doesn't necessarily have redemption per se, but he does get a chance to escape and start fresh. And that was sort of like his journey, like his whole struggle, during the present parts of the narrative is basically him trying to do that. So like, I thought that was fine. It's not super deep. It's not like, again, as intricate or nuanced. And I'm saying I don't think it ever could be, because there's not enough time to do, again, 5-6 seasons of something versus 2 hours of, and of course, it's mostly assuming you already know the whole story beforehand. If you come into this cold, you have no fucking clue. It means nothing.
This
right?
is definitely, I mean, in a good way, this is fan service.
Yeah.
And it's not like they could have really thrown anything on the screen. And there's going to be a lot to say when it comes to the characters and style, because a lot of my themes, I think the themes are strongest because of the performances are amazing.
I think I'll agree with that. But like I said, I'm giving it an okay, softish 1, but still 1 for themes.
I'm going to get that too, because one of the things is like, one of the things I always say is like, all right, this is an explanation. This is an excuse. In other words, I can't fix this, but let me explain why I fucked up. And to me, the letter to Brock was that.
And he did the best. He even called his parents and was like, this might not mean much, but you guys did the best you can. It's all on me. Like, I knew it, I take responsibility. And like, that's fine. Jesse does grow up a bit. Like, I think he has matured quite a bit as a character because of what he's been through.
You know what? It is a true, realistic redemption arc, because there is no way for redemption. It's just a matter of settling what you can.
Moving on with the best you can do. Yeah, I agree.
So I agree with you. I'll give it a 1.
All right. So why don't you go on to antagonist then, buddy?
Okay. The antagonist is really interesting, because the antagonists are probably dead people from Breaking Bad. It's kind of like the legacy of Uncle Jack.
I think that's
and Todd
right there. Yeah.
So it's really, this one is probably one of the more difficult things, because how can you, this is the fallout of what's not there. I mean, what happened, but the people he's fighting are the ghosts. I mean, because like the guys from the welding front, they're bottom feeders too.
They're sort of tangentially related. Like, they just heard about that. Oh shit, all these dudes got busted. They must have the money somewhere. Let's see if we can go get it too, right? Yeah. So
this is a really interesting antagonist, because this is probably the biggest reason why you cannot go into this film cold. You do not know. And the recap for this, when they recapped like 6 seasons, was like, 3 or 4 minutes.
It was like almost 5 minutes. Yeah. And like, I appreciated that, because it was nice to have the refresher, but you're right. There's a lot of stuff there that they had to unpack, that they had to like, hey, remember this and then this and this.
And I forgot it was Walter White who basically condemned him. He was going to kill him. And that's why he sent him to Uncle Jack, because he figured let them do the. Yeah.
So yeah, like, I don't know. Certainly Jesse as a character felt antagonized, of course. He's scrambling. He's trying to escape the cops, trying to remain like, on the run, and going to his buddies for help. And they do the best they can. Like, here's some, whatever we have. Here's the cash. Like you said, they do the car swapping thing. And again, he's trying desperately to scrape enough, get the money, find the money where he knows where it is, get enough to have Robert Forster, a vacuum cleaner guy, service to get him, smuggle him out of the area and give him like a sense of being a new fake identity, et cetera, et cetera. So like, you're right. There's no like one force. Like, it's like the specters of all the action that happened previously. And again, yes, you need to have, known or seen at least a majority, if not all of it, to get the impact of all that.
Right. You really, if nothing else, you needed to see the last season, season and a half. And I'm going to give this is going to be the most interesting thing because this isn't like a nebulous thematic antagonist as you and I always love or anything. This is going to be the first antagonist that's not there that I'm actually going to give a 1 to because the whole movie is the fallout from it. It really is an epilogue and you kind of have to.
It's the consequences of everything that all the characters did before in the series. Now, like, caught up to the present day.
Yeah, and you do take it as this is an epilogue, even though it's like 5-6 years after the fact. So I'm going to give it a 1. I mean, because it really did set a lot of things in motion, and this is the fallout from it. So I got to give it a 1.
Yeah, I mean, it felt a little bit like classic, like, for example, when Jesse tears apart the Todd's apartment looking for his stash of money, and like he didn't find anything. He's so frustrated. It's almost reminding me of like when they're trying to cook meth and like they're fucking up, and he's like bangs his head against a thing, and of course, like by happenstance, that clues them in into where the money actually is. So like I felt Jesse's antagonism as a character, just trying to like he finally escaped, like he's alive at least first of all, escaped like getting away from the fucking basically white supremacist gang members who've kept him under captivity, forcing him to keep making crystal meth until Walt saves him. And now he's like, now what the fuck do I do? Right? There's a lot of heat on him. He's trying to figure it out. So I'm just saying like all that stuff, you're right? Like, yes, it's because of all the setup that had come before in the series, the story of the series, but it still meant him as a character was dealing with it. And I think it was pretty well handled, pretty well portrayed.
Yeah. And I think giving it a 2 is the right thing in retrospect, because you're right. This is part of the series. It isn't a standalone movie. It isn't a retcon. It is a true epilogue and narratively. This would probably be the one I took away from plot.
Yeah, and and I agree. Like, so, like, and he did find closure, right? Jesse escapes and ostensibly starts a new life in Alaska, and then that's it. That's all you need to.
He's not a manager at Cinnabon in Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. Which was a funny. I thought they might mention that. Like I think they referenced Saul like once, like throughout the whole.
Yeah, because he said, "I got rid of your lawyer,"
or something like that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, for antagonist forces, and again for the sort of connectivity there, the bridge between the series and what's happening in this El Camino, I think I'll give it a 1 as well. And let me move on to protagonists. So Jesse Pinkman, Aaron Paul, I think is a pretty solid, high caliber actor. Like of course, this is his iconic role, like basically catapulted him into stardom, or at least put him on the map. And yeah, I still believe him as Jesse, but I do believe his maturity as well. I think is a big point. Like I mentioned, like he doesn't say bitch at all, and I was trying not to do the reference either, except for the funny intro. So yeah, like he clearly has, like when he goes to see his friends, they're still like dicking around, they're doing the meth, they're smoking a joint, whatever, and like, yo, what's up, Jesse, man? It's like, oh, what the fuck happened to you? He's like, his face just goes, I do not want to talk about it, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that to Aaron Paul's performance. I mean, this really cannot be understated. I really like the PTS they were working in, how things would freak him out, and like when he was
true,
and like he would just start crying, and they would set it up. Like it's just like he is such a broken character.
Yeah, there's some good moments like that.
He's barely containing his he doesn't have any strength physically, emotionally, mentally, and he's got to press on, and it shows that how he was trying to press on in the past, which in the narrative is a few days beforehand, maybe a week.
Exactly.
Even though to us it was been like 5 or 6 years or however long it was. Jesse was fantastic as a character. Aaron Paul really knocked it out of the park. I just can't say enough about his performance, and I think they handled Jesse perfectly. It was a real, I believed it. It wasn't an artifice. It was there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one more thing I'll add is that, like I mentioned earlier, I like the moves he made. I think he learned, of course, like from experiences and from like Walt being his mentor, of like how to like outplay everybody, how to like, throw everybody off his trail and like get to the things he needs to get, and like again, outsmart people. Like I said, the one thing I didn't like was the fucking let's have a Wild West duel.
Yeah,
that wasn't even his idea.
But that was actually in a weird way. Yeah, he kind of prepared himself for something he didn't know was going to happen.
Yeah.
A and B. Out of everything else, that seemed kind of out of place.
That's what I'm saying.
That really did. Because the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, he's so broken. And I figured he'd do something a little more desperate.
Like, yeah, I mean, he still got the upper hand, but like, that didn't sit right with me. But
it did seem like the writer's hand with that one.
It's not really like a fault of him as a protagonist, but I just want to add on, like, I did want to mention that I was impressed with the other moves he made.
Yeah.
And to enable his escape, and in fact successfully did so. And like you said, Aaron Paul did a great job as always. And yeah, really good character and nice to see him slipping back into the role. So I think we're both giving him ones there, and that'll bring you to secondary. This is an interesting one, so you go first.
Secondary, as I said, is really could have been a let's throw in as many flashbacks as possible.
Hey, let's have everybody still back here.
They could have brought Tuco in. They could have brought, obviously Bob Odenkirk. They could have brought in. They could have brought in anybody and everybody, and they really kept it to the biggest influences of his life, which would be Mike, because Mike did kind of apprentice him for a while.
True.
There was no reason to bring back. There's a lot of people they didn't bring, and they brought Kristen Ritter back because that was a love
of
his.
2 scenes.
Yeah,
and that was fine. Yeah.
But that was somebody who had affected him on a positive emotional level before Brock and his mom, and they did show Brock,
that's right,
mom being killed in connection to
recap,
that it was Todd, and Todd was actually the one who, because he broke him out of jail for like 2 days to help him dispose of his body, gave him the tools. So it's actually in a weird way. And I think they used him well. I thought Badger and Skinny Pete were just really great. I feel like they were the same characters they were at the beginning, where they're just kind of slackers. But when Jesse came up, it just showed what kind of people
they stepped
were.
up. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And as always, in his last role, and this was released on the day he died, Robert Forrester, as always, is fucking gold.
I mean, he's always great for sure. Like, they could have put him in you put him in anything, and he would have been sweet. So, like, I agree. I at first coming to this one, I wasn't sure, like, but you made a good point that I do appreciate the fact that they didn't go overboard with bringing back everyone ever, like Gus or like
Gus,
anything like that. It was, you're right. That they kept it to the characters who were most important to Jesse and had the most impact upon his character development. So that's solid. And yeah, I was impressed. I was like, oh man, Skinny Pete and Badger are gonna fuck it up, because that's like the nature of their characters. But like, I was impressed with their sort of like, if not maturity, like their cleverness with handling it.
But the thing is, it shows 2 things. It shows that they've been in this game for a long time. And number 2, I think, as much as, the death of, there was a third or fourth person in their crew who died.
Oh,
I think that was kind of a wake up call. Actually, that's what started Jesse back
Forgot about that. Yeah. Nacho or Cheat. His name was something like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to say everybody's role had a purpose to it, and served either the plot or Jesse's character.
Yeah, good point.
And like I said, it would have been so easy to throw. They could have thrown Gus in there. They could have thrown Saul in there. There really could have been scenes that would have been narratively okay, but would have been gratuitous to this. And all the supporting
would have been superfluous. Yeah,
all the supporting characters served their purpose and were. You know what's really funny is because the supporting characters, the strongest ones to his character, except for Badger and Skinny Pete, were contained in the flashbacks.
Yeah, for sure.
Because this is really about Jesse and his psyche. So having Mike and Kristen Ritter and Walt show up is important.
True. You're right. At least I think I very much agree. So that, like I said, I was a little bit like unsure, but having talked it out, I think they deserve a pretty solid one. And I think we're doing that for secondary. So that will move me along to dialogue. Again, like nothing wrong with it. Totally fine. Does it deserve a 1? I don't know if it deserves a 0, so I'm sort of like stuck in like I don't know, man.
I could answer.
There was
that
never
one.
Okay. Let me just talk it out for a bit and give you my initial thoughts, and then you rejoin. So it was fine throughout. I never thought to myself like, oh, that's a stupid line. It doesn't make any sense or blah blah. Except for the Wild West thing, which I was already mentioned multiple times now. Other than that, though, it was fine. Like. It's funny because like Jesse actually doesn't say that much, even in the flashbacks, because he's like, he's like broken down, like he's sort of like cowed. He's being dragged along by Todd, at least for a large part of it, like as the B plot in the flashbacks. So like everything else is it's fine. I guess it's just fine. That's really what I think of the dialogue overall. So having said that, what's your take?
Okay, there's 2 things I'm going to say. Number 1, I think Jesse, for having not a lot of lines, and this we have set precedent for non-verbal communication as dialogue.
Sure,
and what he said and what he did really said a lot, because even times when like Todd was like, we took the gun out of Todd's glove compartment, and Todd's like, give me the gun, Jesse. And Jesse didn't say anything. And Todd's kind of having a conversation with him. He's like, I'm going to get pizza and beer. What do you like pizza-wise?
Sure.
And Jesse's crying, and he's just like, pepperoni. He goes, pepperoni, good. I mean, but the thing is, there were conversations happening with Skinny Pete and Badger. The other thing I am also going to, because like I said, it was all natural dialogue. And one thing I was afraid of, and this goes back to what I was saying with the supporting characters, it would have been really easy to have a lot of flashbacks or forward scenes where Jesse's being Jesse, and you said bored, like using bitch and all that stuff. They really played Jesse, and Jesse communicated a lot non-verbally. And
that's a good point.
People were having conversations with somebody who's not responding verbally.
Right. And I think you're right on that front. That thing pushed me over the edge. Like I said, I was never dead set. It's just that our usual like default is like, if it's serviceable, if it's good enough, then it gets a 1. So like, yeah, I guess it pretty much was that, and a little bit more even. And the non-verbal stuff is a good point. I think maybe it's a little stronger case to give it a solid 1.
Yeah.
For dialogue, and I will do that. All right, buddy, go on to style.
Style. I loved the style of this film. I think restraint is one of our themes for this review, because they showed every flashback had a purpose, and the flashbacks with Todd were probably mechanically, narratively, what really kind of propelled the middle of the story.
Yeah, for sure.
And they showed you what was needed. And oh my God. And I'm so glad they did not try to de-age or de-weight Jesse Plemons, Todd's character, and they just, because that would have added an uncanny valley.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So many, no matter what budget we have, they always try to pull that bullshit.
Yeah, it's unnecessary for the most part.
It wasn't, because Jesse Plemons is a great actor, and he just was Todd. And Todd is an amazing character. He is one of these characters that I would imagine would be difficult to play. And it shows a lot of restraint. And I thought they handled the flashbacks perfectly. They kept the narrative going. They didn't get bogged down in any one time period. I felt
true. It was nicely spaced out, paced.
Every scene was just as long as it needed to be. I just loved the way, I loved the way it was shot. And I said, I think the only complaint we have is the welding Wild West thing. I loved,
the biggest one, not the only, but like the most egregious thing.
Yeah. And the thing I liked was that there was kind of one of those things where I kind of felt like they had 2 last shots, because they had the overhead shot with him driving off. And I figured they'd do that. And then they showed him in the car. And it was kind of like a mirror effect.
It's a parallel, of course.
Yeah. To the beginning, which I thought was really cool. And I read originally there was going to be a voiceover with him reading the letter to Brock.
Nah, that would have been dumb. I would have hated that.
Yeah, exactly.
Good call on them for not doing that.
Yeah, as I said, most of what was happening in here was communicated non-verbally. I thought the style of this film was really good, and without the style of this film, without its structure, the narrative would have fallen completely apart.
No, I mean, I agree. It's a good point about how like there's enough time for the flashback parts and then like the present day stuff. I mean, it looked like a regular, like I said, a double, like a back-to-back episode of Breaking Bad. And like they've always looked quite quality, if you will, like in terms of the shots, in terms of like some of the setups they have and so forth, the sets and all that. Yeah, like no complaints. It's solid. It's more than solid, in fact, and it lives up to the standards that the show itself set. So I really can't complain about that. I did feel as if again, and as Steve-O mentioned, and I noticed it as well, there was like about 45 minutes through, like that would have been the perfect ending. We're in an episode, right? And then, like, and bam, like another one starts up. So yeah, I think style, it's always been one of the stronger points of the crew and the production who did Breaking Bad, and I think this one is no exception. It works damn well.
And maybe this is going to bleed over the next thing, but I'm so glad they did this now, because in a lot of ways, I like Saul better than Breaking Bad, because it really is a talkie show. Like nothing, there's rarely an action element. And having had 5 years of Saul, where it is all restraint, because they could have, again, Saul's one of these things where they could throw in a lot more Easter eggs than they do. And I think their experience working on that and showing restraint really paid
sort of
off
informed this one. Yeah, that's a pretty good point. So, having said all that, it was one to style, and that'll bring me home, as you mentioned, segueing into recommendation. I guess, yes, of course, caveat, as long as you're a Breaking Bad fan, I've seen Breaking Bad, like, I guess you could try watching this without, but again, it won't mean much. It's not going to be like the most engaging story, because there's all this, like, I don't want to say baggage, but there's like this background of information that without it doesn't, it's not going to keep itself afloat for you. But if you are, anyone who has seen Breaking Bad, and if you're like on sort of on the fence, like, oh, I wonder how the El Camino is, like, it's pretty damn solid. It's mostly what you want out of a follow up to, like you said, 5 or 6 years later after the main series. And I think it does cap off the entire story of the characters introduced there. Now, Better Call Saul, yes, is still ongoing. It's its own spin-off, but it's a prequel, whereas this, again, is a cap-off epilogue, as I mentioned. And, again, as long as you have already seen and liked Breaking Bad, the series, then you're probably going to enjoy this one pretty well.
Again, this is one of those things where it's kind of like the Marvel films once you get to a certain point.
The continuity lockout.
If you've continuity lockout. If you're not a fan of Breaking Bad, this is probably not even going to show up on your radar when you see it on your Netflix queue. For those of us who have seen Breaking Bad and are fans of this universe, this is definitely a must-see. It is an epilogue. It is an epilogue. It serves its epilogue purpose to a series.
Yeah.
This is a very weird thing to discuss because we are not talking something that's
I know it's an odd space, but still.
Yeah. So given what it is and given the target audience, because this is not for everybody, this is for a target audience.
Sure, of course.
This is definitely a must-see. If you've seen Breaking Bad, you need to see this because this is perfect.
Yeah, like you said, like they didn't fuck it up. They didn't go overboard. They didn't like do something that was totally left curve that would have left like a lot of fans. I think if they had done something like that, we would obviously have said that, noticed it, and we're like, what? How did they mess up the Breaking Bad movie so bad? But I don't think that is the case. I think they did a great job with what they had, and now we can all move on. Let's see what Vince Gilligan and crew does next. Like they're still doing, like I said, Saw and all.
I hope they do 5 and 6 back to back. I
think the story of Breaking Bad itself and the main characters is now fully complete and in a fairly satisfying way overall. And yeah, I think it's worth it. And I think we're both recommending it.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll bring us home. We gave it the same score. We gave it a 9 overall. We took off a point for plot because of the one scene and just a few other things here and there. It just wasn't perfect, but it was damn solid, again, within the framework, within the existing world and the characters that we mentioned. And yeah, El Camino, a Breaking Bad story, is solid enough if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, and I think you will have a good time with it. And now we can all stop wondering what the hell happened to Jesse and be satisfied that he is living his own life out there in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully not making meth. Or maybe he is. I guess we'll never know because I doubt they'll have any plans, but it's fine otherwise. So I think that'll do it, my friend.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
No. All I'm going to say is that both Aaron Paul and Vince Gilligan said, no, this is the end. There's no more of him.
And that's fine. I like when creators like don't fuck around either. Like let's milk it. No, we're good. Makes sense. Wrap it up. Boom. And we'll see Aaron Paul. Actually, I think he's going to be in a new season of Westworld. So
really?
That'll be
cool.
That'll be interesting. And I think that'll do it. I've been Scott Thurlow, driving away in my own El Camino, and I've been here with Chris Morgan.
It's all good, brother.
And we'll see you next time.
Editing and engineering by Stephen Hermosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?